Hi, Dick Rauscher here. Today we're going to be talking about Stony Hill Nugget number 257, the challenge of choosing a career for young people. Most of us have some pretty clear ideas as to what our children or grandchildren should be doing. And this article is cautioning you against that for a couple of reasons. One we'll get into as I go down the key ideas here. But most importantly, it's a big issue. It's a big question for young people today. And we need to be careful not to come up with solutions or recommendations that are a little bit too simplistic. But let's go down through some of the points and why I think this article is important. First of all, as I said, choosing a career is a huge issue for most young people today. They know that the world is changing. In fact, they see it usually a lot better than their parents and grandparents. They're living in that world and really paying attention to what the options are out there. And frankly, some of the options are not so good. So we need to be careful as parents, grandparents, teachers, in how we give advice, okay, and the kind of advice we give. In other words, recognize that this really is a difficult choice for the young people, and let's not oversimplify it. Okay, it is a choice, and the choice, and the reason it's it's a challenge, is that we have to define the difference between meaning and success. That's one of the biggest areas that I think we can help our young people in, and that is to hold up the fact that those are two very separate subjects. Young people sometimes get focused on this. Why? Because the world is focused on it. Success is how much you own, how much money you make, how successful you are, how fancy the car is you drive, how big the home is, what's your paycheck, how much prestige do you have, how much power do you have. These are so built into our culture that it's really hard for young people to really understand the importance of finding a career that provides meaning for their life. But there's a big difference between telling kids what to do and then just sharing our story. And the key concept in this, don't have an agenda. If you have an agenda, they're going to pick it up. And as I point out in the article, one of the best ways to send kids in that direction is tell them they should go in that direction. Okay? So avoid agenda. And I'll show you why here in the next point. But this is pretty critical. Kids don't want to be told what to do. They want to figure it out on their own. But they also need some help. They need some insight from our stories. And they'll hear those insights if we don't have an agenda attached to it. Okay? So tell your story, no agenda. Now, why is agenda so important? And it's a no agenda importance. The world is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. And young people today recognize how difficult it is, for example, even to get a job, or how to pay for an education, or what kind of an education to get. One of the things that is changing, and it's different for our world, in other words, the world that we all as adults grew up in, is not the world that the young people are going to be living in the next 10, 20, 30 years, okay? There's an increased importance, for example, on having some trade skills. Now, for a lot of people in our generation, the teachers, the parents, the grandparents, this was considered kind of blue-collar stuff. And I think there's a little bit of a bias against it. And that's why the agenda, not having an agenda, is important, because we don't want to send that message to young people, okay? Having trade skills just might be a really slick way to go into the future that's so uncertain. If you read last week's Nugget article, you'll understand what I'm talking about. There are some huge changes coming down the line, and trade skills are likely to be much more successful than high education skills, okay? And I'm not pointing to one being more important than the other. But when it comes to kids making a decision, the hope is that they'll see trade skills as important as higher education and college, okay? Now, this story that I tell in the Nugget is just an example of how I shared a story about my journey with a grandson on a hike recently. I hope it's kind of helpful for you. I hope it'll give you kind of the flavor of what I'm trying to get at here in these points. You need to share your wisdom, share your experiences, okay? Not your ideas and thoughts, your opinions. Share your experience. And if you do that and you're careful not to attach an agenda, recognizing that our world is not the world that the young people are going to have to grow into and be successful in. And what I mean by success is raise a family and survive. So if we can tell our story through our own experiences without an agenda, they'll hear it, okay? Kids are probably smarter today than we were back years ago, okay? Because they have to be, and they know that. Share your life adventures, don't have an agenda, and we'll see you down the road.